Everybody. So is the streaming clear? Just write in the chat box. Is the audio and video clear, guys? Good evening, everybody. Okay, great. So I'll start in 1 minute. I'll let everybody join. Today we're gonna see a new algorithm coming to. This is a problem, maximum sub-array sum. This problem is also an array problem. Will be given an array or a vector or a list, and we will have to calculate the maximum sub-array sum. I will explain the problem in detail, and we will see all possible approaches for this problem. Brute force, then semi-optimized, then again semi-optimized, then finally the optimized version. Okay. So we will see everything which might come to your mind while when this problem is given to you. Okay. So is the video not live on competitive programming channel? I guess. Okay, I'll make a comment there. Just wait. Cool. So let's start, guys. So Pradipta, yes, interviewer. No, I mean not always. Even if you have given enough reasoning, if you're good at your reasoning, some problems are open ended. It will always happen that if you are sitting for a very very good company's interview in a very good product based company interview, there is a I mean large there are large chance there is a large probability that in the final rounds you will be given an open-ended question, which means, let's say, an NP hard problem, okay, whose solution is not known. So yeah, definitely the interviewer cannot expect the best optimal approach there, right? So yeah, they're just gonna see your reasoning. Sometimes the interviewer is not looking for the optimal solution, okay. The interviewer might tell you to write the code for bubble sort. Everybody knows that it is not the optimal solution for sorting, right? They want to just see your coding skills, and yeah. Yeah, Kailash, I remember everything. So I already told you yesterday. So today is 28th, 29th. So after today, we will meet on 1st. Okay. So I'll be taking a break for 2 or 3 days, and I'll be meeting you guys on 1st July, 1st June. Sorry, 1st June. And on 1st, I'll give you the links to the sheet and to the GitHub. Okay, to the entire sheet, and a plan as well. Okay, so the how will the next 1 week look like from 1st to 7th, so that you have the calendar ahead of you. The 1 week calendar basically. I'll give you the sheet and the GitHub links for the entire course. For all the programs which you are writing in this course. Best platform to code. It depends, Himanshu. What you're looking at. For If you want to become an expert in programming, I mean, CodeChef and Codeforces will be best. And for interviews, we have plenty of other platforms as well. I know. I mean, yeah, LeetCode is fine. I mean, even for interviews, Codeforces and CodeChef will help you definitely. It doesn't matter. I mean, concept should be clear. Platform doesn't matter. Cool. I'll start. So this is the link to the Telegram group if you want to join. And here I'll be posting updates regarding every lecture. Okay. So here I'll be posting the update regarding the lectures, the code. I mean the GitHub links, everything. So yeah, if you don't want to miss any update, you can join this Telegram group. Okay. And this group is closed. I mean, nobody can write messages, so you will not have spamming in this group. And probably will open, and from next month I'll open the chat box for an hour or so that you can write your reviews and queries if any. Okay, so so before starting, these are the new batches which are going to be launched in on an Academy's competitive programming subscription. So if you take the subscription, you'll have access to all the batches which are currently running and which have already run, so which are already completed. You can watch the recorded videos. And if you join a particular batch, I mean, if you just focus on a particular batch, you can attend the live classes and you can focus on that particular batch basically. And you can probably join multiple batches as well. If you take just one subscription, you can join the interview batch and the upgrade batch at the same time if you are, let's say, a 2 or 3 star programmer. So yeah. Okay, so Pratham is saying that screen is not visible. Is it the case? I guess the screen is visible, right? So I'll tell you more about these batches at the end of the slides again, okay? So let's start. So firstly, before starting, what is a subarray? So there are two types of concepts. I mean, there are two types of concepts which are applicable in CP generally. I mean, for arrays, we can have two things, subarray and subsequence. And even for strings, both these concepts are applicable, substring of a string and subsequence of a string. So do you know the difference between subarray and substring? The only major difference is, I mean, the subarray has to be a contiguous part of the array. Okay, so if uh, if this is my array 3 5 2, okay, sorry, yeah, 3 5 2 minus 1 6, then it has to be continuous. Okay, so this is a subarray. Okay, this element alone in a subarray, the entire array is a subarray. This is a subarray basically. Okay, so it has to be continuous set of elements. So basically, how do we define a subarray? It is defined by two indices I and j. So let's say the indices of the array are one index. So the array is one index. So let's say these are the indices of the array 1 2 3 4 5, or let's say 1 2 3 4 n if n is the size of the array. Okay, so let's say the array is one indexed. So how do we define a subarray? We define the subarray using two indices, the starting index and the ending index. And starting index and ending index can be same. Okay, so this is how, let's say, we define a subarray. Okay, so the set, how many set of possible I comma j values do we have, which will be the number of different subarrays, right? So how many different subarrays do we have for an array of size n, given that empty subarray is not counted? Okay, for now I'm saying that empty subarray is not counted. It has to be of size at least 1, which means it has to follow this property. How many subarrays will we have? We just have to find the number of I comma j which follow this property, correct? So it will be nc2 plus n. Okay, it will be nc2 plus n. nc2 is the number of pairs. nc2 is the number of pairs in which I and j are different, and now I and j can be same as well. So if I and j are same, we have n such possibilities. If I and j both are 1 2 3 4 and up to n, and nc2 are number of pairs in which I and j are different. So I mean, if you don't want to count like this, think it in this direction. If I is equal to 1, you have n options for j, 1 to n. If I is equal to 2, you have n minus 1 options. If I is equal to 3, you have n minus 2 options, and so on. Similarly, it will go up to, when I is equal to n, you will have one option. So it will be n plus 1 by 2, right? So the number of sub-arrays of an array is of order n square. Do you agree? We have, for an array of size n, we have order n squared sub-arrays. N squared different sub-arrays, right? If sub-array is defined like this. Everybody agrees? Cool. So this is sub-array, okay? So the number of sub-arrays will be order n square. And now what is subsequence? So if you know the set theory, if you know set theory, do you know what is a subset? Subset of a set. You take any sample of elements, right? If the set contains n elements, you take any elements. I mean any number of elements. It doesn't. I mean they don't have to be ordered, right? So subsequence concept is like subset in sets. Okay, it might feel like different. I mean consider the elements 3, 5, 2, -1, 6. If you take any set of elements which need not be contiguous, okay, they need not be continuous. So for example, if I take 3, 2, -1 and 6, this will be a subsequence. Okay, 5, -1 and 6, this will be a subsequence, so on. So yeah, Ujjwal has already posted an answer. So how many different subsequences do you think we have? So this is again a problem of counting combinatorics. We have two options for every element. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it, right? We have two options for every element. So we have n elements. We have two options for every one of them. Rule of product. We have 2 to the power n possible options. So yeah, which is the cardinality of power set basically. Correct. So yeah, so do you agree that the number of subsequences is exponential? For an array of size n, the number of subsequences is exponential. It is 2 to the power n. It is of order 2 to the power n. Right. So what is happening here? Actually, every sub-array is a subsequence. So appreciate this thing as well. Every sub-array is a subsequence as well. We have more subsequences than sub-arrays. Okay. So this is how it will look like. It is the set of all possible subsequences. It is the set of all possible sub-arrays. Okay. So yeah, this is the case. So this is what we discussed. Firstly, what is subarray? Okay. Now let's see what the maximum subarray sum problem is. The maximum subarray problem. So the source of this information is Wikipedia. Okay, I have taken this definition from Wikipedia. The maximum subarray problem is the task to find a contiguous subarray. I mean, yeah, subarray is defined to be contiguous only. Okay, with the largest sum within a given one-dimensional array. Let's say it is one index for now. Let's say the array is this, index is this from 1 to n. Okay. Formally, the task is to find indices I and j with this property. We have already seen this thing, right? This is how a subarray is defined with two indices, the starting index and the ending index. So we have to find two indices I and j such that this sum is maximized. Do you agree? We have to maximize the sum of elements taken inside the subarray from I to j. So sum of elements from index number I to index number j, this sum has to be maximized. So which subarray should I pick? This is the problem. Okay, so mathematically speaking, this is the problem. Right? Any doubt till now? Cool. So now let's look at history of this problem. I mean, this problem has so mathematicians and I mean researchers are always cool, I guess. So yeah, so this problem was proposed in 1977. I mean, I'll just take 2 minutes, okay? uh, so Grenander proposed this problem. So he was working on images. So he was trying to find in an image. Image is nothing but a two-dimensional array, right? Of values, of RGB values. Let's say at that time we have black and white pictures. So let's say if I have a grayscale picture, just values in a 2D array, okay? And he was looking to find a rectangular subarray with maximum sum. Okay, so he was working on this problem. At that time, algorithms were not. I mean, people were not very. I mean, too much crazy about algorithms. So if this is an image, he was working on a problem in which he had to find a patch in an image which has maximum sum. So I mean, if more value means white color, this is generally happening. Okay, if you say the I mean the values of a grayscale image, they will range from 0 to 255, right? And 255 will mean white and 0 will mean black. So he might be looking for the most luminous patch. Okay, we can, I mean, let's say he was working on some problem like that. So so he was looking for a subarray, a patch in this image whose sum is maximum. So this was the problem he was working on back then. And uh, and brute force algorithm for this two-dimensional problem was order n to the power 6 in time. He came up with this solution, okay, the brute force solution. So what he did was he took all possible 2D subarrays. We will discuss this. What is brute force method and all? We'll discuss this. This will be easy. I mean, you'll figure this out. So yeah, he took all possible 2D subarrays between the inside the image, and he took the sum and he found the maximum. So yeah, he was working on this problem, and then he converted this problem to 1D space first to see that how much better he can do, right? So it was him. I mean, it was Grenander who converted this 2D problem into 1D problem. I mean, this problem which we are looking at currently. So this problem is we have n integers and we have to find a subarray which has maximum sum, right? So he did this thing. He did this conversion, and he tried to solve this problem first. And so the brute force approach of this will be order n cube in time to check the sum of every possible subarray. Okay, we will see this thing. For now, when whatever I'm saying, just accept this fact that yeah, brute force will be n cube, and we will see in detail. Okay, so he was able to manage this problem. I mean, he was able to find an algorithm which is order n square instead of order n cube. Okay, so he found this algorithm, but still it was not very optimal. I mean, it was best he could do in 1977 back then. And then Michael Chemos, some other mathematician, I mean, heard about this problem, and he overnight devised an order n log n algorithm which was using the divide and conquer strategy. Okay, so we will look into divide and conquer problems in detail. Divide and conquer problems generally turn out to be n log n. Okay, generally they will have the log n term, and we will see the reason also, that why are they generally having the log n term. Okay, and by how can we devise divide and conquer strategies, in what type of problems can be. Generally in sub-array problems it is easy to devise divide and conquer strategy, okay, but in subsequence problems it will be difficult. I will tell you all those tricks, okay. I mean, the CP is not like too much logic only. It is some uh, I mean, repetition also, okay. So you will have a set of problems, and then it will be clear, I mean, in what type of problems which algorithm we can apply. So when going forward in this course, you will see that in what type of problems we can apply divide and conquer. This is a problem in which divide and conquer can be applied, okay. So yeah, Shamos did this thing. He applied the divide and conquer strategy on this problem, and he came out with an algorithm which was running in order n log n time, okay, which was better than order n square. And finally, he in Mellon University, he proposed this problem in a seminar, and Kadane designed an algorithm in just a minute, which was an order n time algorithm. Okay, just during the seminar only. So yeah, it was good, and yeah, he did this thing. So that is, from that day, this algorithm is called Kadane's algorithm, his algorithm basically to do this thing. Okay, and when we look into this algorithm, you will feel that yeah, I mean, the algorithm is too silly. I mean, you might feel it is not silly. I mean, it takes time to devise algorithms. Okay, so all the algorithms which are devised by great mathematicians, we will see during this course. I mean, they took some time. I mean, we will learn them in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 1 hour. let's say. But and funny thing is, in interviews you are supposed to come out with with that algorithm in 1 hour. I mean, how can they expect? So let's say the string matching algorithm, the KMP algorithm, even Kruth Morris, I mean, they let's say took 1 month to come up with that algorithm, right, for that problem. And an interviewer will expect you to come up with that algorithm for that problem in 1 hour. So yeah, this is the world. We cannot do anything. So what we can do is learn everything. Okay, before interviews. Cool. So yeah, so let's start with the problem. Okay, this is a brief history about the problem. Now, what is the brute force? What is brute force? I mean, brute force is generally thinking of all possibilities, right? What is brute force? Solving a problem by seeing all possibilities and taking out the optimal one, right? So what is the set of all possibilities here? We check each and every subarray. We check all the n square subarrays. They are n plus 1 by 2, right? Order n square. They are greater than n square basically. So what we do? We check all possible subarrays, and we see that which has the maximum sum, right? Okay. So the brute force approach will be checking all possible subarrays. So check the sum of all possible subarrays. So the number of subarrays will be order n square. And if you find one particular index, let's say I and j, to find the sum of all elements between I and j, you will again apply a loop, right? And to check the sum of all elements in a specific subarray, the worst case time you will require is order n. So this algorithm is order n cube overall. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say this is our array, and yeah, this the problem is to find the maximum subarray sum. Okay, and the algorithm is somehow like this. For I mean, for I in range, I mean, I'm writing some kind of Python code, let's say 0 to n minus 1, or let's say we have one indexing only for now. So for I in range 1 to n, for j in range I to n, which means, I mean, j starts from I, right? This is our condition, because our condition was this: for all possible subarrays we have to do this thing. I has to be less than I has to be greater than equal to 1, and j has to be greater than equal to I, and which is less than equal to n, right? So this is my all possible subarrays. Now these indices I comma j represent a subarray. Now I'll take another for loop. So let's say I initialize the sum here, sum to 0, and now I take a for loop for k in range I to j. I'll find the sum of all elements. And after this for loop, I'll compare this with the maximum sum. Okay, so if sum is greater than the maximum sum currently, the maximum sum will be updated to maximum sum. Okay, to sum basically. Okay, so yeah, this is, do you see this, that this is an order n cube approach? So to calculate this sum for every subarray, you are taking additional order n time, right? Does everybody agree that this is order n cube algorithm? This is the first question. Okay, so this is the brute force. Okay, everybody knew about this algorithm when the problem came up, even the one who designed this problem. Okay, I mean, who was the guy? Yeah, Grenander. Okay, so yeah, this is our order n cube algorithm, and we don't require any extra space. Space is not required, only time is required here. We don't require any extra variables, only these variables, sum and maximum, some one or two, a couple of variables, that's it. So constant extra space. Now if you look carefully, we can do something better. So if you think carefully, we can avoid this for loop. That will be a better algorithm. Can you, do you see this thing? we can actually avoid this for loop. Why so? I'll tell you the reason. What we are doing currently, if this is our I, we are increasing j one by one, right? Fixing I mean, what we are doing, whenever we write, yeah, prefix sum, I mean, we don't require prefix sum array as well. Actually, we don't require prefix sum array also. Without using the prefix sum array, we can do this thing. How? What we are doing currently is, we are fixing the initial position, the start, and we are moving the final position j. So yeah, we are partly using the prefix sum idea, okay? So the sum of elements from here to here, this is what we are trying to calculate. And we were actually very silly. Why? Because we already calculated the sum of elements from here to here in the last loop. And now we are increasing a j and we are again calculating. So I mean, we are wasting the effort which was gone in calculating the sum of elements from here to here. Do you agree? We already calculated the sum of elements from this I to this j. And now when we incremented j, again we are calculating. So why are we doing that? We don't require this for loop. When we increase j, the previous sum value can be used. Do you agree? So the new sum for from I to j will be the previous sum plus this new element. That's it. Okay. So we can get, I mean, we can eliminate this for loop and our new algorithm will, I mean, look like this. So for I in 1 to n, for j in, okay, so for I in 1 to n, so when we fixed an starting position, we will initialize a sum, this sum, and before I mean, this is our maximum sum, this is our final answer, okay? And let's say it is not 0, it is minus infinity, okay? This is minus infinity and this is our sum. And what we will do is, we will start the loop of j from I to n in a similar manner, but we won't require this k now. We will keep adding terms to this sum only. So what we will do, we will write this thing, sum plus equal to all elements from ai to aj, because when j it starts with 0, so initially we store the value of ai in sum, because initially j will be I, and as j goes forward, we will keep adding terms after I to sum, right? So yeah, this is the case, and yeah, we keep updating maximum sum. So do you see that this algorithm will work? It is not divide and conquer algorithm. We just got rid of a for loop. We only require two for loops, because it is always guaranteed that when you when you fix the initial position, when you are incrementing j, the previous sum can be used. You just have to add the current element to the previous sum, and this will be a new sum from the elements from I to j. Write in the chat box if you have any doubts and if you understood, I mean, anything. When I is incremented, subtract ai before incrementing I. Do we need to subtract ai before incrementing I? We don't. I mean, we are initializing sum with 0, right? Abhinav, why do we need to subtract anything? So just see with an example. Let's say 3 minus 1, 0, 3, and minus 2. This will be I, and this will be I, and we will initialize the sum with 0. And now this will be j, so we'll add aj to a sum, which will be 3. and then when j will be incremented, 2 will be there, and then j will be incremented, 2 will stay the same. So yeah, for 2 to n, suppose we are taking subarray. Abhinav, I still don't get your doubt. We are starting with 0 every time. Yeah, we are starting with 0 every time. Okay, so every time when we incrementing I, we are setting sum to 0. So now when j will be equal to I, aj ai I mean sum will be initialized basically with ai only. Okay, yeah, I can go with this example. So let's say I run this. I mean, okay, I'll do a dry run. Okay, so here what will happen initially? Just give me 1 minute. Okay, it will take 1 minute. I mean 1 or 2 minutes. The concept will be clear. Okay, so yeah, what will happen here? Initially, we will have a sum initialized to 0, and this will be our I. Okay, so every time we increment I, we set this sum to 0. Now when we iterate for j from I to n, so now j will be equal to I first, and we'll add aj to sum, so sum will become 3. And now every time sum gets updated, we also update maximum sum. Sum just stores the maximum sum which we have seen so far, because every time we update sum, what we do is we write maximum sum is the maximum of sum and maximum sum. So if the new sum which we saw is greater than the maximum sum which we previously have seen, we'll update the maximum sum, right? I hope you understand this line. Maybe we can write it using an if statement as well. Okay, so maximum sum is currently 3, because this is the maximum value of sum which we have currently seen. Now we increment j, and we'll add aj to sum, because now the sum from I to j, see this thing, it becomes 2. Now we don't need to update maximum sum because it is already 3. 2 is not greater than 3. Now we again increment j. 0 is added to sum, it remains 2. Again maximum sum remains 3. Now j is incremented. So we have 6 here, and maximum sum is updated to 6. And now j is incremented to -2. So yeah, -2 is added to sum, and now 4 is less than 6. So we don't update maximum sum. Now this is important. So this currently we have seen only the subarrays starting with the first position. Currently we have seen all the subarrays which are starting with the first position, because I was fixed to first position 1. Now we increment I. Now I is this. Now we are going to see all subarrays starting at this position. And we are initializing this sum again to 0. We are updating this sum to 0 whenever we are incrementing I. Now again we are doing the same thing. Now j will start with I, and we'll keep doing the same thing. And so yeah, maximum sum will at the end contain the maximum value of all the subarrays. So is it clear, Faizan? Everybody? Yeah, cool. So this was a slightly better algorithm than this. I mean, not slightly, I mean, it is way better, as you, I mean, complexity wise, it is very better. Uh, we previously had n cube, now we have an n square. Okay, here it should be n square. Sorry, there is a mistake in this slide, it should be n square. Okay, and still we don't need any extra space. So the algorithm is check the sum of all possible arrays. The number of subarrays will be order n square. Now to check the sum of every subarray, the worst case time is constant only, not order n, because we will keep adding the sum to the same variable of the particular I. Okay, so the time final time will be order n square and not order n cube. Okay, now what will be the more better algorithm? Divide and conquer. Okay, I mean, there are many algorithms for this problem. You can start with order n cube. We have seen an order n square. Now we can come up with an order n log n algorithm also. So when we see divide and conquer as a concept, it will be more clear. So I will try. I'll try. Okay, to I mean, to explain the divide and conquer strategy for this problem. If you don't understand, even if you understand it 40-50%, then it is fine. Otherwise, when we see divide and conquer in detail, then again we will take this problem and write the code there. Okay, So today we are not going to write the code, divide and conquer code. I'm just giving you hints and strategy how to apply divide and conquer in this problem. And later when we see divide and conquer as whole, I mean as a topic in CP and interview preparation, there I'll give you all the problems which are solved using divide and conquer. So merge sort is a divide and conquer strategy. You might have heard about merge sort, right? Merge sort is a divide and conquer strategy. Divide and conquer, as the name suggests, it divides the tasks. The entire task, it divides it into two parts or three parts, let's say. Basically, it divides the entire task, solves the individual task, and then again conquer. Okay, again merge. So divide the task, solve the individual task, merge the results. This is what divide and conquer means. If you have heard about merge sort. Okay. So what happens here also we can actually apply divide and conquer. So in divide and conquer there is a generic like logic which is going on in any divide and conquer problem. Okay, you have a problem which has to be solved for this big array. This big array contains n elements indexing from 1 to n, right? So the indices of this array are 1, 2, 3 up to n. Yeah, and this for this big array you have to solve a problem, some problem. So generally in divide and conquer what we do is generally there are two strategies. Okay, so the basic version of divide and conquer you might think of is you solve the problem for n minus 1 elements, and somehow you use that data and some other data if required to calculate the result for the entire n elements. Okay, and it depends on how much time you are taking on this particular step in merging the results that your final algorithm will take. So this is a part of complexity analysis. So you can create recurrence relations for this. So if Tn is the time taken for the entire algorithm, I mean you can do something like this. You are solving the problem for n minus 1 elements, and it depends on how much time you are taking for merging this extra step, right? You have the results for n minus 1 elements. Now how are basically you merging the results of the previous n minus 1 elements with this element to get the final result? So it depends on how much time you are taking in this step, and it will determine the total time. If this is constant time, then your overall algorithm will be order n. If it is order n time, then your overall algorithm will be order n square, and so on. It depends. I mean, you can solve this recurrence relation very easily. Okay, it will be very easy. If you're taking log n time here, it will be something different. I mean, and so on. Okay. So it depends on this merging step. In merge sort, I mean in divide and conquer, this merging step is very important. How are you going to merge the final results? This is one type of divide and conquer. And the most commonly used divide and conquer type is you have the problem for 1, 2, 3 up to n. You divide the problem in two halves. You solve this half of the problem, you solve this half of the problem, and you merge the results of these two halves somehow. I mean, I don't know how you are doing this thing. I don't know currently. Our overall task was to solve the problem for these n elements. I said that I am solving this task for these n by 2 elements, and I am solving this task for these n by 2 elements, and maybe I am solving some other task also which will help me in merging the results. Sometimes we have to solve some other task also. Okay, then I'll merge the results of this task and this task, and I'll keep track of some other things as well if required. Probably I'll merge them to solve this entire task. So it depends on how much time we are taking to do this merge step. I mean, yeah. So what happens here, the recurrence relation will generally look like this. Tn will be 2tn by 2, because we are solving two problems of half the size. Plus, it depends on how much time you're taking now. Okay, in merge sort, you are taking order n time to merge the two sorted lists. Right? In merge sort, what you're doing? You're sorting this part, you're sorting this part, and then you're merging. In merging, you're taking order n time. So the overall algorithm becomes order n log n. So it depends on how much time you're taking here in merging. And this will define your overall time complexity. Okay, So in this problem also, maximum subarray sum, you can come up with a strategy in which you have this exact recurrence relation. You will solve this part and this part, and you will merge the result of both of them in order n time. So overall, you will have an order n log n algorithm. Okay, this is the gist. I mean, this is what we are targeting to do. Cool. So what the algorithm looks like, I mean, I'll tell you. Okay, so let's discuss that as well. So let's say the array is this. Okay, what we will do is we will solve the problem for this half. We will calculate the maximum subarray sum here. We will calculate the maximum subarray sum here. So what are the cases? What could be the maximum subarray for this entire array? I'll give you three cases. The maximum subarray of this entire array can entirely lie in the left half, or the maximum subarray of this entire array can entirely lie in R, I don't know why it is acting like this. Okay, right. These are two cases. I mean, the maximum subarray can entirely be in the left subarray, or it can entirely be in the right part. Or the third case is it will look something like this. Do you agree? The third case is it might look something like this. I mean, in which it will, I mean, it will pass through the middle point. Okay, this is the third case. So the I mean, it passes through the midpoint. These are the only three cases. Okay, so I'll have to change the nib. Okay, cool. I'll do that later. Okay, so yeah, these are the three cases possible. Okay, so if you have an entire big array for which the problem has to be solved, the problem is to find the maximum sum sub array. Okay, for the entire array, what you can do, you find the maximum sum sub array in the left part, left half. You find the maximum sum sub array in the right part. How do you doing it? It is recursion. The original problem is finding maximum sum sub array. You are calling the same function but for a smaller array now. Okay, so the function is calling itself. It is recursion. Okay, so if you wanted to solve the problem from 1 to n, I mean indexing 1 to n, starting and ending for the entire array, you solve the problem from 1 to n by 2. You solve the problem for n by 2 plus 1 to 1 to n, which means the right part. You will get results for this. I mean, it will keep breaking itself. This will be seen in detail in divide and conquer. Okay, I cannot explain the entire divide and conquer right now. Okay, we have time constraints. This will see, I mean, it will be very easy there. Okay, when we see merge sort, when we see divide and conquer in detail, this will be easy. So what essentially we are doing is we are solving the problem for left half, right half. We will get results of these. Let's say this is a1, this is a2. Don't use red color. Okay, fine. The answer for this is a1. Let's say the answer of this is a2. Then, and again we will find one more answer, a3, which is a special answer, which is basically the maximum subarray which passes through this intersection. So what we do is, through this intersection we go left and we find the maximum subarray sum. Okay, so now we have fixed the initial point. There is an amazing property of intersection, because we know this is a prior information. We know that the subarray which we are looking at in the third case will always pass through the intersection it makes it a special property that the initial point is fixed. And we know that if the initial point is fixed, we can see all subarrays in order n time. What we will do, we will fix the initial point here. We will go to the extreme left, seeing all the subarrays. We will keep adding the sum, -3 and then 2. I mean, we'll keep adding in the same sum. Initially it will be -3, then we'll add 1, so it will become -2, then -4, then -1. We will take the maximum of all of them. And similarly, we fix the initial point here and we'll move right. And we will see all of them. I mean, what is the maximum I can go if the initial point is fixed, and what is the maximum subarray I can get by going here? Okay, so that way I can add these both to find the maximum subarray passing through the intersection point. Okay, so I'm not giving you the entire algorithm because this code we will see later. But I hope this is, I mean, write in the chat box if you understood 50% of what I am trying to say. This third step can be done in order n time to find the maximum subarray passing through the intersection. And final answer will be the maximum of A1, A2 and A3. And the recurrence relation here is Tn is two Tn by 2 plus order n. We already know the solution of this recurrence. It is order n log n, right? Mud sort has the same recurrence relation. We will see in detail how to solve this recurrence, how to, I mean, yeah, everything. But yeah, this is how the divide and conquer strategy looks like. So what we have to do, so this is the array which we want to solve for, from starting index to ending index, and this is my midpoint. You calculate the maximum subarray sum for S to M and M plus 1 to E. Let's say they are S1 and S2. Then for the subpart S to E, you find the maximum subarray sum which contains the middle element. Okay, let's say which passes through the middle point basically. So which passes through M. Let's say this is S3, then the desired maximum subarray sum will be maximum of S1, S2 and S3. Right, so the time of this algorithm will be order n log n. Yeah, you can definitely use the master's algorithm here. Okay, master or recursion tree also, I mean, yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is our n log n algorithm, which is better than order n square and order n cube versions. Okay, so we have seen 3 algorithms for this problem. Finally, Kadane came up with an algorithm which was the most optimal algorithm for this problem. So now let's see the Kadane's algorithm. Okay, so he utilized the properties of this array very intelligently. Okay, so he did some observations. Okay, so what were the observations? So let's see, let's try to come up with the observations. So firstly, appreciate the fact that the array must contain negative elements. Otherwise this problem is kind of useless, right? If the array doesn't have negative elements, then the maximum subarray sum, I mean the subarray which will give us the maximum sum will be, answer the question. If the array doesn't contain negative elements, then what will be the subarray which has the maximum sum? Sum of all elements, right? The entire array itself will give you the maximum sum always. If all the elements are positive or 0, why will we reject any element? If all the elements are positive, why will we reject any element? Okay, so this problem makes sense only when you have some negative elements and some positive elements, I mean, to spice things, right? Okay, now so this thing is established that we must have negative elements. Okay, so first thing is, if we have only positive elements, we will take the entire subarray. Okay, so we don't want to do that. Now if we have negative elements also, so this is also a good case. Okay, Videsh is giving us a case. All elements can also be negative. I mean, if all the elements are negative, what we will do? We will take the minimum, the maximum of them. If the subarray has to be of size 1 at least. Let's say if the constraint is like this, that empty subarray is not allowed, then what will you do? Then in that case, what will you do? You will take the actually the maximum element. You have all the negative elements, but you just take the maximum element of them. So let's say if this is the array, -3, -5, -2, -1, -7. What will you do? You just take this element. This subarray has the maximum sum, right? That's it. But we want to create a generic algorithm. I mean, which handles all these cases. So he appreciated. I mean, he examined the array, and he came up with some observations. The observation is, if you have any element, I mean, let's say let's say this is my array. This is my element I am currently at. Okay. And if the maximum sum subarray ending at this element, what I'm trying to say is, if the maximum sum subarray ending at this element, at the element before it, is negative, which means the sum of the maximum subarray which is ending at the element before it is negative. What does it mean? You take as many elements as you want before it, you will never get a positive element. Let's say this element is also 1. This element is 1, let's say. So ending at this point, if all the elements, if you take any subarray, you always get negative values only. You get negative sum only. I mean, you try to understand my mind. We are currently at we are currently at this point. Fine. Now we are taking the index before it, and at the index before it, we are trying to see that is there any subarray which has positive influence basically. So can we have positive sum subarray? Does it exist? It doesn't exist right now, right? And there doesn't exist any subarray which ends at -2 and has positive sum. Do you agree? There doesn't exist any subarray which has positive sum and which ends at -2. The only three subarrays are -2, 1 and -2, -3, 1 and -2. And the maximum sum among those will be of this subarray, right? 1 and -2, -1. So the observation which he made was, if this is the case, then the array before 1 is useless. I mean, starting with 1, I mean the maximum sum subarray, if it contains this 1, will definitely not contain any term before it. Right? So you have to start your journey again from here. It is like having two independent tasks. Solve this independently, this independently. Why? Because here you cannot do anything. You will not aid. The maximum you could do was -1. Why would I take you? This one is saying, this one is looking here and saying the maximum you can give me is -1. Why would I take you? Right? And so the maximum subarray which contains this element 1 can never have any element before it. Right? So Abhinav, don't jump to any conclusion right now. I'll tell you the final algorithm, okay? Then it will be clear. But this is an observation I'm trying to make. Do you agree with this observation? This one will start its own journey. From, I mean, he will look only further. He will not look at back. Cool. So this was an important point currently. Now, what we will have now, what the algorithm looks like. What will we do? we will have this thing. I mean, we will store a sum at every index. We will keep storing a sum, the current sum, let's say current sum, which is the maximum sum subarray ending at this index. The maximum sum subarray, observe, see my points. Saksham, how minus 1? Because if we take this array 1 and minus 2, if we take this subarray 1 and minus 2, this will be the maximum sum subarray ending at minus 2, right? Its sum will be minus 1. That is how minus 1. Okay, Saksham? Cool. So Supratim, I'll repeat. Okay, I'll repeat. I'm giving you the algorithm. From the algorithm, this point will be clear. I'll repeat this observation again after telling you the algorithm. Okay, then it will be more clear. So Pradipta, why are we not taking only one? That is a good question. I'll tell you the answer for this. Because when we are at 1, we are trying to look at subarrays which contain this element 1. I am looking for those subarrays which are containing this element 1. So it cannot have this element and this element, right? Otherwise it will be a subsequence. What we are not having, why we are not having only one is, if I take this one and this one only, it will not be a subarray. When I am at this one is looking backwards. And the problem with this one is, it has to take a subarray. This one is included for sure. This one is the host currently, okay? We are looking at, we are one. We are this one and we are looking backwards. And we are thinking that, should I go backwards? But the problem with going backwards is, I have to take all the elements in the path because it is a subarray. Okay, the problem, if I am one, I am looking backwards and I'm thinking that should I go backwards and pick out some elements. The problem with going backwards is, in the path I have to take all the elements, right? So either I take minus 2, okay, minus 2 is fine, but if I get some positive element after that, then it is even, right? If there is a 7 here, then it is worth going here. I don't know, right? If it is a 7 here, it is worth going here, so he'll go further. But he finds a 1, so it is still minus 1. He again goes further. He still he gets to minus 4. So he says that, yeah, going backward doesn't make sense. I should go forward only. Okay. So that is why we cannot have this 1 and 1, and that is why I told that the maximum this part of the array can do for 1 is minus 1. Which is this part, 1 and minus 2. Okay. So I hope you are getting the observation now. So what we are trying to do is, we will keep an variable current sum, and let's say the current sum stores the maximum subarray sum okay. Maximum subarray sum ending at I. Okay, so what does it mean? Let's say current sum of I. Okay. My stylus is not working, so I'll just tell you with words. Okay, let's say current sum of I denotes the maximum subarray sum ending at I, which means, so if this is my array, minus 3, let's say that we have the same array, minus 3, 1, minus 2, 1 and 6. Current sum of this element will be the sum of the maximum subarray ending at this element. Maximum subarray, and it should end at this element. What does it mean? It should contain this element. It should end. What does it mean? It must be a subarray like this, right? So current sum of I means the maximum subarray which is ending at I. And it has the maximum sum. Okay. So how does it help? How does it help? When we go at I plus 1, current sum of I is useful in a sense that if current sum of I was positive, then we will add to this element. Okay, so what we will do, if current sum of I was positive, then at going at I plus 1, we know for sure that if the maximum sum if the maximum subarray contains that I plus 1th element, it should contain this subarray as well, because its sum is positive, right? So if this element was 4, if this element was 4, the maximum subarray till here would be this, which whose sum is 2. So when we come at this one will look backward and he will be happy, because the current sum value of this element before it is 2, which means that the maximum sum subarray ending at this element is 2, which is positive. So what this one will do, it will take this 2. I mean this is what the case will be, right? So the current sum, so appreciate this fact that the current sum of I is equal to, current sum of I is it will be equal to current sum of I minus 1 plus A of I. So let's say current sum is denoted by the array C only. Okay, I'm sick of writing this entire current sum. Let's say I'm writing this as C. So C of I will be C of I minus 1 plus AI. If, can you give me the condition? Only if, okay Viresh, I will try to not use. So what is the major problem, I mean, with the red color? Is it only if Ci minus 1 is positive, right? I mean the current sum ending, the current sum at I, the current sum at I, it will take the previous subarray, the previous maximum sum subarray only if its sum was positive. Otherwise, it will reject it. It will start its own journey, right? So Ci will be Ci minus 1 plus Ai only if Ci minus 1 was positive. What is C? It is current sum of previous element. Agree? Do you agree with this statement? Otherwise, it will be AI only, right? So is the expression correct for Ci? Does everybody agree? Right? And observe the fact that actually the maximum sum ever possible is the maximum value of all Ci's. I'm giving you one statement that the maximum subarray sum which we required, I mean which we wanted to calculate, is the maximum value of all possible Ci's. What is Ci? The maximum subarray sum ending at I, right? And any maximum, any subarray sum, any desired result must end somewhere, right? And if I take the maximum value of all Ci's, for, I mean C0, C1, C2 up to Cn, if I take maximum of all of them, I will get my answer. Because any maximum subarray sum, which was the original problem, what will it be? It will end somewhere, right? It will end somewhere, right? And at that particular somewhere, its Cn value will be the maximum possible for all of them. That's it. That's it. We just, what we calculated was, we just observed a thing, and we I mean we have written an expression for Ci. Ci is the maximum subarray sum ending at I. And the major, yeah, so correct Faizan. So the major accomplishment of this algorithm is we keep neglecting the negative terms. That is why this algorithm is working. Every time a subarray sum ending at I becomes a negative, we ignore it completely because it is worthless for the next element. It will not look backward, it will only look forward, right? So this is the entire algorithm actually. Actually, I have told you the entire algorithm. what we do, we calculate the C value of every element, and the C value of every element, which is the maximum sum subarray ending at that element, depends if only and only on the value previously to it. I mean the current sum value of previous element. Only if it is positive, otherwise it is useless. And yeah, we can use this thing also. Yeah, correct. Okay, Rini, I mean we will use this thing. If current sum ever gets negative, we make it 0. Okay. And do you, I mean, so do you see that the time complexity of this algorithm will become order n? We just have to make one pass of the algorithm, right? Of the entire array, sorry, to calculate the C value of every element. Because the C value of every element depends on the C value before it. That's it. So to calculate C value of any element, it takes constant time. We will calculate the current sum value of every element, and actually we will keep the maximum value as well. We will keep updating the maximum value as well in this journey. So it will take order n time only. Viresh, it doesn't matter. Okay, that's a very good point. Viresh has made a very good point. If all the values are negative, then current sum will never become positive. So and that's the best thing about this algorithm. It will never become positive. So what will happen if all elements are negative? Here the current sum will become -3, and maximum sum will also become -3, because maximum sum is actually the maximum value of any current sum. So the current sum here will become -3. Current sum here will become -5 and not -8, because the current sum of previous value was -3. Since the current sum of previous value was negative, this element won't take the current value of last value. So the current sum of this element will become -5, and now the current sum of this element will become -2. It will also not take the current sum of previous value, because yeah, it was negative. Again, the current sum of this value will become -1, and for this value it will become -7. And maximum sum will be the maximum of all of them, which is -1. Automatically adjusted, right? It will automatically be contain the largest element. This will work for any if the array contains all positive elements, then also then it is also an easy case. Let's say this is the array 6 3 6 3 2 5 1 4. Here current sum will be 6. Here current sum will be 9, because the previous element's current sum was 6, which is positive. It will take 6. I mean, yeah. Here also it will take the previous element 11. Here also it will take the previous element 16, 17, and 21. And the maximum of all of them is 21, which is actually the sum of all elements. Okay. This was Cadian's algorithm. Okay. A beautiful algorithm with an important observation, that we can always neglect the negative current sum. Now, can you tell me the space requirements for this algorithm? So the time is clear. The time has to be order n. We don't require any extra time. Can you tell me the space requirement of this algorithm? How much space, extra space other than the array itself, we will require? So Viresh, we are not doing this thing. Okay, actually notice this thing. I never told you this. If current sum is negative, then make current sum 0. I have not written this thing in my entire slide. What I am writing is current sum is equal to current sum of previous element plus ai if current sum is positive. Current sum of previous element is positive. Otherwise make it ai. I have not written this thing that current sum becomes 0 if it is negative. I am assuming the current sum is negative. In your algorithm, if you're updating current sum to 0, if it is negative, then it won't work, because I mean then you cannot update maximum sum using current sum actually. Okay, then after adding ai only you can do this thing. I mean I mean programming thing, that is not algorithmic problem actually. That is a problem when you need to see programming concept. I mean how are you gonna code? Fine. So when you are seeing the programming version, I mean, how you're going to code this thing, then you have to observe. I mean, then you have to see this thing, that do we have to make it zero if it is negative, and if you're doing that thing, when we have to update maximum sum. That logic, I mean, you have to apply when you're programming basically. You're telling updated version of Cadence. Is it the case? I don't know. I mean, this is the Cadence I know. Important thing is, I mean, did you understand the algorithm? That's it. Okay, so I'll tell you the algorithm. This is the Python version of the algorithm given in Wikipedia. So this will be very easy to understand. Okay, best sum is zero. Let's say it is not zero. I mean, best sum can be negative also, right? If all the elements of the array are negative, then the best sum can be negative also. So we cannot initialize with zero. This best sum is maximum sum ever possible. So let's initialize with minus infinity instead of zero. Okay, minus infinity here. And now current sum is zero. This current sum is Ci. Okay, so we were discussing space requirements first before going here. We were discussing space requirements. So most of you are writing order 1, but it is not actually order 1. Okay, if you see this algorithm like this, it might seem that it is order n to store the C values of all the elements, right? If you see this algorithm like this, like I have shown you here, it might feel that the space requirement is order n because we have to store the C values of all the elements and you have to take maximum of all of them. But actually the space requirement is not order n. Most of you figured this out. The C value of this element Ci depends only on the C element before it. So why do we need to store all of them? Just store the C value of the previous element. That's it. Okay, you update the C value using the previous value. That's it. Why do you have to store all the C values? Okay. So yeah, this is the algorithm written in, I mean, written shortly. I mean, the best sum is minus infinity. Viresh, there is a problem with assigning int min. I'll tell you this thing. You are right. I mean, int min is minus infinity like of thing, but there is a problem with that. I'll tell you. If you initialize in this problem, if you initialize best sum with minus infinity, there is a problem, and I'll tell you that problem while coding. Okay, so stay with me. So best sum is zero, or minus infinity or int min. Anything. We'll discuss that. And current sum is zero. Now for x in all numbers, current sum is maximum of 0 and current sum of x. So okay, so they are using something different. I mean, yeah, so this algorithm won't work. I mean, there is a slight, yeah, we have seen a slight different version of this algorithm. Okay, here actually the answer will be 0 as well. I mean, yeah, forget about that algorithm. We will stick with this algorithm. Okay, so we can update it. So let's say the current sum is maximum of previously existed current sum plus AI and AI. Okay, this is what we are going to do. Current sum already stores the current sum value of previous index, right, when we are in a loop, and now we are updating the current sum using the previous current sum. So current sum will be maximum value of current sum plus AI or AI only. So what does it mean? It automatically means that if current sum was negative, we are not taking current sum into account, right? If current sum is negative, then we will take AI only. If current sum is positive, we will take this term. Do you see that this will work? This is actually the entire thing which we wanted to implement here. This thing is equivalent to this thing. Do you agree? If current sum is negative, if previous current sum is negative, then we are taking this term. If previous current sum is positive, then we are taking CS plus AI. So it makes it the maximum of both these values, right? This is how we are going to update CS, and the maximum sum ever possible will be maximum of MS and CS. Just 2-line code, okay? Just 2-line code. Yeah, so it might be the modified version of cadence. So the original version contained 0, okay, and it was slightly incorrect to initialize it with 0 and so on. This is the best version. I mean, it will always give you the correct answer. Okay, just 2 lines of code. Iterate over all elements and write this thing. I mean, yeah. So I'll write it quickly. Let's say the function name is cadence, and it calculates the maximum subarray sum for the vector v. So I'll initialize the maximum sum ever possible to. So somebody told that I can initialize with int min. So let me initialize it with int min. And there is a problem with int min, I'll tell you. Okay. Yeah. And I'll initialize the current sum also to int min. Yeah. Now for every element in the vector v, CS will be maximum of CS plus n or n, right? Here n is our AI. I mean, we don't have to write AI. Since we are writing this range based for loop, we don't have to write AI. This n is the element in the vector, and ms is the maximum of ms and CS, right? And return ms. So there is a problem with this CS. You cannot initialize this CS with int min actually. You cannot so we can initialize ms with int min, but we cannot initialize CS with int min. CS is our current sum, okay? So current sum cannot be initialized with int min. There is a problem with that because if this is the minimum number possible, it will be minus something, okay? And if the first number is also negative, this minus maximum number minus 3, let's say this, what will happen is, let's say this element was minus 2 1 3 4 something blah blah, okay? This is the maximum negative number possible, and you're again adding n to it. If this n is negative, it will make it positive, okay? It will overflow, okay? So there is a slight programming complexity here. Don't initialize, I mean, just keep this thing in mind. Don't initialize the initial current sum to minus infinity. Initialize it to 0, so that when you see the first element, CS will always be initialized with the first element, because 0 plus n and n will be same for the first element. After that, you don't require the initial value anyways, right? So do you see that this algorithm will work always? Right? Any doubt now? This was the cadence algorithm, okay? Very easy algorithm, very easy code. I mean, uh, what could be more easier than this, right? 4 lines of code, and yeah, we have achieved our task. Order an algorithm, no extra space, only 2 variables, that's it. Beautiful algorithm, okay? So Viresh is saying for negative values, we have assigned 0 to current sum. So what? So what? What will happen? Current sum is initially 0. Okay? Let's say the first element is minus 1. Let's say the first element is minus 1. What will be the value of current sum? It will be the maximum of 0 minus 1 and minus 1. It will be the maximum of minus 1 and minus 1. It will become minus 1. Because this statement is like this, CS is the maximum of CS plus n or n. If CS is initialized with 0, the first CS value will always be initialized to the first element. See this thing. CS value will always be initialized to the first element. So the first element, if the first element is negative, its CS value will be negative minus 3. and now ms is initialized to the minus infinity, so it doesn't matter. Even if cs is minus 3 is better than minus infinity, so maximum sum will be updated to minus 3 instead of minus infinity, right? So this will work indeed for all negative elements, for all positive elements in any case. Okay, I hope you agree now. Okay guys, so that's it for today, and we will meet on 1st June now, after 3 days, and we will see. I'll give you a schedule for 1 week after that, and we will start with advanced algorithms for advanced, I mean, no, not very advanced, yeah, mediocre level, let's say, data structures and algorithms. So I'll start with linked list probably, or some algorithms. I'll look into that. I'll talk to Ravi sir also, what is the update on Java course and everything. I'll tell you everything on first, okay? And I'll give you the GitHub links as well. Probably same time Vivian, otherwise I'll update you on the Telegram channel if the timing is slightly different. Most probably same time. So this is it. If you're watching it for the first time, I'm Jay. I secured only 39th rank in ACM ICPC, and I recently got placed in Google as well. So if you want to purchase the Unacademy subscription for GATE or competitive programming category, you can use my code JAYCP. You'll get 10% off. Okay. And initially, in the starting of the lecture, I told you about the batches. So you can see the batch structure for all the batches on the Unacademy platform. So the upgrade batch will look like this from week 1 to week 29. Similarly for Victor and Striker. Okay. So as discussed previously, if you take subscription for CP, you'll get access to all the batches which are running. Okay. And these are the educators who will be teaching: Tanit, Saket, Pulkit, Riya, and very recently, I mean, probably I'll be teaching on the Plus subscription as well. I'll take some batch and I'll let you know. But if you take the subscription for 1 year, basically you'll have access to all the batches which are running basically. So it doesn't matter. Even if I'm taking some classes in some batch, you'll be able to see those too. Cool. So this is the price if you use the code after using the referral code JAYCP. Otherwise they'll be 10. I mean, yeah, you'll get 10% off. Okay, they'll not be 10% higher. If the original price is X, this is X minus 10% after using JCP. Okay, it doesn't make original price this plus 10% of this. Okay, I hope you understand this thing. Okay, you're not school students, right? You understand this thing. The original price is not 10% more of this. This is 10% lesser than the original price of the subscription. Okay. So today you don't have any homework. You can find problems related to Cadence algorithm, and you can try doing them. Okay, just search maximum subarray sum and you can find problems around it. Cool. So yeah, you can follow me on Unacademy to see my special classes for free. Okay. Okay guys, let's meet on first and we'll discuss more. Bye.